Top 8 Unsolved Cases in the World. Hello viewers, welcome back to our channel Secret Solvers. As everyone enjoys watching suspenseful and murder mystery films, we are kept on the edge of our seats by the surprise factor and plot twists. But the terrifying thing is that these bloody crime scenes are not merely a figment of our mind. These heinous crimes do occur nearby, and occasionally they are simply too bizarre to be solved. There have been many unsolved killings throughout history. They frequently grab our attention due to their stunning, tragic, and odd circumstances. In this video, we have discussed some of the spookiest unsolved murder cases that are sure to keep you up at night. The Zodiac Killer. Most criminals keep their crimes hidden, but Zodiac, as he called himself, was anything but. He terrorized San Francisco between 1968 and 1969 with his murderous rampage while poking fun at the police in his scrambled letters to the local paper. While he claims to have killed 37 people, at least 5 murders have been directly linked to him. When Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Arthur Faraday, 17, were discovered laying outside of their bullet-riddled automobile, he first experienced fear. Faraday passed away from a head wound while being transported to the hospital, while Jensen was found dead at the site with 5 gunshot wounds to her back. A couple who had parked their car 4 miles from the crime scene was shot and killed and injured a half-year later. Michael Mageau, the survivor, was able to describe the murderer. He described a 5'8" inches heavy-set white dude. The final piece of evidence would be provided to the police by the Zodiac Killer himself. Police got a weird call that same night at 12:48 a.m. I wish to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east in Columbus Parkway to a public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They have been shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. The first letter from the Zodiac Killer was sent to journalists a month later. He threatened to go on a killing rampage unless they put the letter on the top page. The letter detailed the killings, which were all marked with mysterious ciphers that appeared to constitute a code. This was a recurring subject in the additional letters he would write, each of which was signed with the symbol of 2 crossed circles. It read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something is the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all that I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife." The Zodiac Killer would continue to murder people and leave the police with frustrating evidence. Coded letters, anonymous phone calls, the cross-circle writing on victims' automobiles, sending over blood-stained clothing and testimonies from survivors, but they never managed to find him. The Tara Calico Case. The morning of September 20th, 1988, in Belen, New Mexico, seemed like the perfect time of day for biking. Tara Calico took a spin on her mother's pink bike that she had borrowed. She was friendly, active, and studying to either become a psychologist or a psychiatrist while working as a bank teller. She had scheduled a tennis match for that afternoon, and she requested her mother to follow her in case she had a flat tire and didn't get back home by noon. She never came back. A year later, a picture of a young woman her age and a lost boy, both gagged, was discovered after numerous leads had come to a halt. The Polaroid picture was discovered in Florida's parking lot of a junior food store. The 9-year-old Michael Henley went missing in the same area as Calico in April of 1988 when he was hunting turkeys with his father. The girl was lying next to a book by Calico's favorite author, V.C. Andrews, which appeared to be in the back of a vehicle. The girl in the picture had a scar that was the same as Calico's, which led Tara's mother to initially doubt that it was her daughter. But despite this, many specialists reject the picture because there isn't any supporting proof. The discovery of Michael Henley's death in the Zuni Mountains in 1990, where he had been hunting, casts serious doubt on the hypothesis that the two were kidnapped and transferred to Florida. Eventually, Calico's parents would pass away without ever learning who had taken their daughter. The Boy in the Box. The body of a youngster with injuries was discovered in a J.C. Penney box in Philadelphia in 1957 by a hunter. The youngster, who was between the ages of 4 and 6, was naked and covered in flannel. He seems to have passed away from head trauma. The hunter chose not to report the body out of concern that the police would seize his muskrat traps. When a college student discovered the body 2 days later, the authorities only then began to look into the case of America's unknown child. The media picked it up right away, and Pennsylvanians saw the boy's flyers all across the state. Police were never able to identify the young kid despite receiving thousands of leads. All their efforts to follow the J.C. Penney box's history and examine the boy's fingerprints failed. There were 2 noteworthy promising leads, though. One lead concerned a 1.5-mile-away foster home. A clairvoyant guided a medical examiner who worked on the case until his passing to the foster home, where he discovered a bassinet that matched the one advertised in the box. There were blankets similar to the one encircling the boy hanging from the clothesline. The man who operated the home's stepdaughter, in his opinion, was the mother of the boy, and she didn't want to be identified as such. Police spoke with the couple, but later ended their inquiry when they spoke with a woman going by the name M in 2003, who said that her violent mother had purchased the child in 1954. They reopened the case. She claimed that her mother killed the boy out of wrath. The investigation was also ended since M had a mental illness, therefore the boy continued to be known as America's unknown child. Jack the Ripper. For more than a century, Jack the Ripper has been haunting the streets of London. Locals in London's Whitechapel neighborhood were paralyzed by terror in the late 1800s after a series of horrifying killings of women there. The victims of this series of killings were prostitutes, and the killer, who went by the name Jack in a letter that got into the hands of the media, became well known throughout the world as a result of newspaper coverage. Books, plays, television shows, and films have all been written on it, yet the case has never been solved. The Jeanette De Palma case. Witches are typically associated with the Massachusetts town of Salem, but in this case, they were located in Springfield, New Jersey. Everything began in 1972 when a dog brought a disfigured forearm home. Police searched Springfield after this and eventually discovered a body on top of a cliff. It was determined that the deceased was 16-year-old Jeanette De Palma, who had been missing for 6 weeks. As soon as she passed away, speculation about what happened started to circulate. Many people think her body was placed on a makeshift altar since the hill where she was found was covered with occult markings. Many people, including some police officers, attribute De Palma's use as a site for a human sacrifice to a coven of witches, often known as Satanists. The case's specifics were largely erased by a flood, which happened afterwards. However, other local newspaper accounts state that because of her severely decomposed body, investigators were unable to ascertain the cause of death. Additionally, they looked into a local homeless man who was a leading suspect but were unable to connect him to the murder. According to the occult theory, De Palma may have incited a group of teenagers who worshipped Satan at her high school when she was attempting to evangelize them. She was a part of an organization that assisted drug addicts in regaining their trust in Christ. She was allegedly chosen as a sacrifice for the organization as a result, according to the reverend in charge of it. Was she a sacrifice of a human, or did the true murderer end up being concealed by these suspicions? Maybe nobody will ever find out. The Glico Morinaga case. Okay, prepare to be shocked because this case is as bizarre as a television crime drama. It deals with the Japanese businesses Morinaga and Ezaki Glico, which are well known for their Pocky sweets. In 1984, 2 masked armed intruders bound the mother of Glico CEO Katsuhisa Ezaki and took the house key. They also bound his children and wife after breaking into his home. Although Mrs. Ezaki tried to bargain with the men about money, they had other demands. They broke into the bathroom where Ezaki and his other 2 kids were hiding and cut the telephone cables. Ezaki was taken captive and imprisoned by them in a warehouse. They demanded 100 kilograms of gold bars and 1 billion yen in ransom. 3 days later, Ezaki was able to escape, revealing their plans. A few weeks later, just when the organization believed it had evaded extortion, cars in the parking lot of its headquarters were set on fire. Then, in Ibaraki, where the warehouse was situated, a container of hydrochloric acid and a threatening letter addressed to Glico were discovered. This letter was the first of a series from someone or some organization calling itself the Monster with 21 Faces, after the antagonist in a Japanese detective series. The letters, which claimed that the company's candies were contaminated with potassium cyanide soda, jeopardized the products of the company. Due to the product's forced removal from the shelves, Glico suffered a $21 million loss and had to fire 450 part-time employees. The Monster with 21 Faces decided to seek out amusement elsewhere after months of torturing Glico. In their last letter to the business, they wrote, "We forgive Glico." After that unexpected conclusion, they immediately shifted their attention to Marudai Ham, House Foods Corporation, and Fujiya. One of Marudai's employees was instructed to give them ransom money aboard a train in exchange for them ending their harassment of the company. That's when the fox-eyed man, the main suspect, was spotted by an investigator posing as an employee. His hair was short and curly, and he had eyes like those of a fox. The man was well built. He and another investigator attempted to pursue the fox-eyed man after dropping the ransom as directed, but they were unsuccessful. Later on, they would have another chance, but he would again elude them. A year later, Police Superintendent Yamamoto, who had endured persecution from the public, set himself on fire to terminate his life because he was ashamed of not being able to capture the fox-eyed man. The Monster with 21 Faces released its final communication to the media 5 days after the death. The Monster with 21 Faces made his final pronouncement and then vanished, never to be seen or heard from again. The Black Dahlia. The raven-haired 22-year-old actress Elizabeth Short was discovered dead on Norton Avenue in Los Angeles, between 39th and Coliseum Streets on January 15, 1947, setting into motion the most famous murder case in Hollywood history. Her body had been split in two, and it appeared that the blood had been carefully removed. Additionally, the murderer had carved 3-inch gashes into the corners of her mouth, giving her an eerie clown look. Short's murder instantly gained attention due to its position in the center of show business, as well as the fact that the police collaborated with the media to share leads in an effort to identify a culprit. Numerous confessors were eventually freed due to a lack of supporting evidence. The specifics of Short's life were the subject of much conjecture. She apparently made several friends while frequenting jazz clubs while grieving the loss of a man she had fallen in love with, making it difficult to determine who she may have been with just before she passed away. Her unsolved murder is the subject of numerous films, TV programs, and books. One of these accounts was published by Steve Hodel, who claimed that the Black Dahlia murderer was his own father, a physician in Los Angeles. No complaints were ever made. The death of Edgar Allan Poe. The author of Raven set off from New York City in 1849 with the intention of traveling to Richmond. However, he only made it as far as Baltimore, where on October 3rd a passerby spotted the incoherent and delirious writer slumped in front of a pub. After being transported to a local hospital, he passed away 4 days later. His death was attributed to congestion of the brain, which was then a slang term for alcohol poisoning by the neighborhood newspaper. However, it was later shown by researchers that rumors about his drug and alcohol usage had been considerably exaggerated, particularly by vengeful literary critics like Rufus Wilmot Griswold. If there ever was a death certificate, it is nowhere to be discovered. According to some historians, Poe may have had syphilis, cholera, or rabies. Others claim that Poe was a victim of cooping, a fairly common practice at the time where corrupt politicians paid thugs to kidnap men, especially the homeless, drug them, disguise them, and drag them to polls throughout the city or state. He showed up on the streets on the same day as a citywide election, they claim. At the very least, this might explain why Poe showed up in Baltimore wearing someone else's clothes. There you have it, 8 confusing unsolved crimes that have captivated and mystified the world for years. Next time, join us as we explore more captivating mysteries and try to learn the truth about these.